Hey friends, I am so sorry. I feel like this video is so late in coming, but it is my review for the books I read in February and March. And so, yeah, just pretend you don't know that it's taken me that long to complete this video. But I do have thoughts. I do have things I want to share. I'm going through this list in no particular order, so bear with me. There's two on here that were my favorites. Of course, they were the nonfiction, of course. But yeah, we're gonna get to all that. I think it's something like 11, 12 books that I read that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to be fast on each one because who's got time for that, right? Who's got time to listen to a 10-minute review on 12 books? That's a lot of time. Okay, first one's first was Mrs. Pickle Wiggle's Magic. Here's what I learned. I didn't start out liking it as much. I didn't like that there was a potion or a pill versus a silly situation. The first book, there was a lot of silly situations, but then this actually ended up having some of that as well. The kids saw me reading it, and so what did they do? They came in and sat and listened to me read it out loud to them instead of me reading it to myself. So the first little bit, I didn't like it as much because I was reading it to myself, and that's just never as enjoyable as reading it out loud to the kids. So this ended up being just as good as the other ones and really, really funny, really cute. Mrs. Pickle Wiggle's Magic. The next one was How to Read a Book. I actually want to talk to people that build curriculum, talk to Sunlight, talk to some other The Good and the Beautiful. I don't know that this isn't in any of those, but I've never seen it in any of the curriculum that I've looked at. And I feel that this would be such a wonderful addition. In fact, I'm definitely going to have my daughter read this because there were just so many big takeaways. It talks about the different types of reading, the surface level reading, and then next in depth, and then deeper, and then reading that's harder, and then how to get better at reading text that is harder for you. And I thought to myself, how good would this be for young emerging adults to read a book that helps them to understand how to get the most out of a book? And so my daughter is 14, she's about to go into 9th grade, and she will be reading How to Read a Book. Probably not till her sophomore year. I'm not going to make her read it this year, but maybe actually the summer before her sophomore year would be a good time, because I want her to really understand how to understand things. And also I think memory can really do this, working on Bible memory or memorizing poetry, memorizing Shakespeare. I think memorization is an incredible tool for helping you to dive deeper. It talks about memorization as well. Those are some of my takeaways from this book. I think it's an absolutely wonderful read. I think all homeschool parents should read it, and I think it should really be included in some high school curriculum. It probably is. I probably just don't know about it yet, but solid. If you're a homeschool mom, add this to your library for sure. Next up was The Marvelous Misadventures of Sebastian. Oh, in case I haven't mentioned this, this is from my Clear the Cart. So I'm doing a series, Clear the Cart, where I'm reading all the books in my cart. I'm like looking at the cart. You can't see it. It's here. I'm reading the books in my cart, and a lot of them are middle grade, and then 10% or so are nonfiction, homeschool books or habit books, things like that. And so this is from that series. So The Marvelous Misadventures of Sebastian, and I have not got to the end, so I can't say for sure if I think it's good, but so far it's been entertaining. I did start to read it out loud to one of my kids, and he wasn't really enjoying it very much, so I let it go because I was like, well, I'll just read it to myself, and then I should have gone through it faster because of that, but it's been a busy season. It's, you know, it's the spring, guys. Spring with 4 children. We're busy. But yes, The Misadventures of Sebastian, I do think it's good, and I think just reading old books is really fun, so. But honestly, I haven't finished it yet, and I just don't want to say that it's a good book unless I've actually read the whole thing. So that's that. Okay, The Runaway King. This is book 2 in the False Prince series. I think it's called the trilogy is called something else. But the first book is The False Prince, and the second book is The Runaway King. Now, I did not enjoy The Runaway King nearly as much as I enjoyed The False Prince or The Shadow Throne, which is the book that we are reading right now. The boys and I are currently on book 3 of the series. Anyway, The Runaway King, and I actually am enjoying it more than book 2, but to get to book 3, you have to read book 2. I don't know, why is that a thing? The second book in the series, I feel like that was true with a lot of books I read growing up, where book 2 in the series was just a filler. Like, I almost feel like I could skip book 2 and go straight to book 3. Just honestly, which sucks, but yeah, I just didn't love book 2. But book 3 is already better, so this is a really good series. If you got young boys, the boys that I am reading it to are 10 and 12, and they're both just very, very much enjoying the story. And I will say this, okay, here's what I will say. I like the character development of Jaren. Jaren is the main character, and he has gone through a lot in his short life. You know, he was a prince, and then he got essentially abandoned by his family, and he then lived in an orphanage, lived on the streets, then got taken back to the castle in The False Prince. He's pretending to be the prince, but he actually is the prince. It's hard to explain in a short video. So now his journey is really getting control of his kingdom and helping it to be in a better place. So his character development is my favorite part of the whole series. There's also love interest, and there's friend dynamics, and I do also like the friend dynamics. I will say the very end of this, the last little bit, was like really good. So I would read it for the ending, but I just felt like the first part, you're meeting characters that you need to meet, and what's all that, but I just was bored by 3/4 of it. So anyway, it is a really good series though, and I do recommend it for homeschool families for sure. Okay, another nonfiction. I read this pretty early in the month of February, and it was good. I have, you know, I highlighted parts that I was like, yeah, I want to do that, you know. I'm trying to find all my little notations in here. However, that being said, I had heard so much about it that I felt like I'd already read it. I think habit building is a wonderful skill. I was listening to part of it, have it on Audible as well as the physical copy. My kids were listening to me listen to it, and they were in the kitchen when I was making breakfast. I had it playing, and they were really intrigued. Oh, that's really cool. That was also a good thing. I do love when I'm listening to nonfiction and my kids are hearing it as well. It really gets their wheels turning, and I think that that's a really, really positive thing. To sum up, I thought it was a really good book. I think it's a really good book for teenagers. I definitely want my daughter to read this, or I might even read it out loud to my 14 and 12-year-olds together and just be like, let's talk about habit building at a young age, and then as you grow, you can take these good habits with you. But I didn't feel like it was life-changing for me because I already felt like I knew it. I already implemented so many of these things, and I'd heard it so many times. I've heard a lot of these habits enough to be like, yeah, I know. The next two I'm going to talk about together because I didn't like either of them. And I know they're classics, and I wanted to like them so bad. I really wanted to like them. Yeah. Okay, so Treasure Island, I was just bored to tears. It was so boring to me. I just didn't get it. I didn't enjoy it at all, actually. It was brutal. I did it, and I'm glad it's done. And I'm never going to make my kids read this book. If they want to read it, I'll keep it for now, and if they want to read it, they can, but nope, not going to force that beast on them. And all of these so far, and I know in my last video I kind of was like, keep, don't keep. I'm keeping these books. Like all of them I'm keeping for now, partly because this is also a classic and I just want to keep it in case they actually want to read it themselves. In regards to this one, love the cover. Probably the best part of the book. The Jungle Book story itself was so not interesting to me. I didn't enjoy it at all. So literally to page 102 is Mowgli's story, to page 216 is the other stories, and they're a bunch of short stories. Some I liked, some I didn't. There was one called The White Seal, which turns out I knew. I remember my grandma reading me that story as a child, which was kind of funny, kind of brought back some memories. Loved that. So Rikki Tikki Tavi, he's a mongoose. His story was the most entertaining, for sure. So, I mean, I did enjoy his story. I just didn't enjoy Mowgli's story at all. The Jungle Book itself, that was super not interesting, not fun. So unlike the story that I was so familiar with, the only parts I liked were the wolves and the family dynamic with the wolves. But then Rikki Tikki Tavi saves a family. He's a mongoose. He's fighting cobras. He is saving everybody, and it's really cute. I also love the mongoose story because we lived in Hawaii. If you've ever visited Hawaii, mongoose are everywhere. And they're sneaky little guys that are like in the trash cans. They're on the beach. They're like, I remember this one particular beach that's really popular over by Diamond Head. And the mongoose there were like, they're bold. Okay, they would practically come onto your blanket or your towel to get your food. If you wanted to go in the water, somebody had to watch the food, because if you left a sandwich on your towel, the mongoose were definitely going to get it. So maybe that's partly why I liked it better, but I just thought the story was better in general. Okay, I have this one, and then I'm going to tell you about 2 more that are nonfiction that are like really good. But this one, you guys, sorry, I have my notes from, this is set in another country. 101 Dalmatians. This book was so good. I wasn't expecting it to be so good. I had just read the Jungle Book and I was like, oh my gosh, if this is another one of those boring retakes on a story I'm super familiar with, blew my mind. I was waking up early to finish reading this book because it was so cute. So, book is so different. First of all, there's 3 Dalmatians and 3 Dalmatian adults. I thought to myself, I can see why they did not try to include all of this in the movie, because it would be hard to explain and have the dogs be able to articulate their feelings. So there's Pongo, and then there's Mrs. Pongo, and they just call her Mrs. for short. And then they are the main 2 Dalmatians, but then they have babies. This all happens in the first chapter too. They have babies, and then they're trying to find a person, or another dog rather. And so the woman, Anita, she finds Purdy, who's out in the road, who just delivered a bunch of Dalmatian puppies and has milk. And so they bring her home and take care of her, and she is now the foster mom to Pongo and Mrs. other puppies. But like, all this is happening, and then Cruella de Vil is quite the villain, and she is creepier and more psychotic in the book than in the movie, which is impressive because she was a pretty nasty character in the movie, but she's even worse in the book, and you're like, oh my gosh. So anyway, Pongo and Mrs. end up going to rescue the puppies like they do in the movie, but it's just a much more interesting journey, and of course it's unrealistic, but it's so cute. You just can't help but love it. And the relationships, they meet other dogs, and I love hearing about the dogs. And then funniest thing that happened, I'm reading about how dogs look like their owners in the book, right? Of course. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm driving to get my hair done, and I look over and I see a sheepdog who is a character in this book, right? And I was like, oh, that's so funny. I don't see sheepdogs just riding in the back of cars very often, just sitting there looking at me, right? And then I pulled up a little and I saw the lady driving. And she had the same exact haircut and the same exact color as her sheepdog. And it just cracked me up because I was like, my gosh, that is a human version of her dog. It's just very nice looking at him, not saying anything bad, but it made me laugh because it was like, they really did look like when you pictured on 101 Dalmatians when the man's walking the bulldog and the one lady walking the poodle, and they all looked the same. It looked like a scene from 101 Dalmatians. It truly did. And I was like, that's so funny. I just finished this book and it's making me laugh. So how's that? Last 2, and these 2 are probably my favorite books that I read in this group. I've read a lot of the books for April, obviously already. And so I'm excited to talk about that because the nonfiction I read in April was like freaking fantastic. So I'm gonna talk about that in my next review video. But for now, still here, Boys Adrift and Raising Critical Thinkers. Boys Adrift, I had read about 7 years ago, but I had not finished it. So parts of it I remembered, and obviously a lot of it I didn't remember. I would say this is a really good read, and I have in fact already recommended it to other homeschool moms that I know that have boys. I think this is a really good book for boy moms because I know for me, there's certain things I don't think about, there's certain things I'm not aware of, and this is talking about a lot of things that we're up against, I feel, in the day and age that we live in. And so this book lit a fire under me to really pursue certain things for my boys. So we're going to be doing more sports, even sports that I put together. We're all going to go to a park and play football at a park on a Saturday morning because I was like, you know what? This isn't going to happen unless I help make it happen. Now, it's not all me. Other parents have to also be willing to help their kids to get to do those things. But I feel like our world in general has turned a lot inward, where we're like, each family is more alone. I know that I felt like that a lot just as we were raising our kids. I moved away from my family when I was 21, and it was no fault of my own, no fault of anybody's. It was just, that was just where life took us. And so my kids didn't get to grow up with their uncles. I have 4 brothers. They didn't get to grow up with them. They didn't get to grow up with my dad. They didn't get to grow up with these solid men figures in their lives. And again, it's not anybody's fault. It's just something I wish that I could have changed, but this made me wish it even more. Yeah, it made me really want to do more sports for the kids, really find good people for them to spend time with. And it's not that they can't get some of that from their own dad or from me, but having mentors and like good manly figures in their life, I think is really important. So something to read for sure. That was clear. That was one of my big takeaways. Also talking about environmental toxins, and that was a big one, talking about why do boys not like school, which is something I'm going through with my 10-year-old right now. He'll say things like, I hate school. He says it whilst laughing. He's not saying it while crying or screaming and throwing a fit, but it'll just be like, I have a great idea, Mom. Why don't I not do school? He'll say stuff like that, like he doesn't want to do it. And he's not academically challenged. There's no barrier here. This isn't something where it's like, it's so hard you just don't want to do it. And they talk about that in this book. So that was a really good thing that I already have just read this book and could have some of those talking to him through, why are you saying this? Why do you feel that way? Things like that, I just think are really helpful. And so I think it's a good book to have in your arsenal of knowledge to maybe understand better why they feel this way or that way. Also, I was talking about video games and which video games are more okay than others. And that was, I thought, very helpful as well. And a good thing to know and a good thing to be aware of. Obviously, this is one man's perspective, but I did agree with a lot of it. Like the majority of it. Which brings me to raising critical thinkers. Now, raising critical thinkers, to me, absolutely amazing. I am so excited to read the other book by Julie Bogart that's on my Clear the Cart that's going to be coming up. It also mentions another book, which is called Thinking Fast and Slow, which I added because I already had it downstairs. So I added that to my cart as well because I was like, okay, she's talking about that being a really good thing. She talks about our beliefs, the ability to think about who is the narrator, who is the storyteller of this thing. There was so many other things too. She talked about essentially us getting a dopamine hit when we read something or hear something that we think, right? So I have certain beliefs around, we'll just say pro-life, pro-choice, things like that, right? I have my beliefs on it. And that when you read something that you agree with and you resonate with, it makes you feel good. It gives you a dopamine hit. But I was like, that's why I enjoy seeing in my feed lots of pro-life content, right? And when I'm watching a Facebook feed or something, I don't use Facebook personally, but I have to be on Facebook a decent amount for work. And I guess that I have slowed my scroll over enough pro-life things for Facebook to know what I like and what I agree with. And I was like, that is fascinating. It's actually giving me a dopamine hit when I hear a debate and I feel excited that somebody could teach someone else. I am not a great debater. I was never in debate class. And when I hear other people with a lot of clarity explain how I feel, I get excited. That makes me really happy because I'm like, okay, I should remember that. And that way, if I'm ever in a situation where I'm debating something, I can remember what they said and how they said it. And maybe that will help me be a better debater. So things like that. And this book explained to me why I feel that way, which I really found fascinating. It also has a lot of action steps, like activities that you can do with your kids. Now, I did find this a little bit overwhelming in that I can't do all of them all the time. I just can't. But some of it was stuff I already do with my kids. Like when we're talking about a book and we're talking about, tell me about the character. Why did you like that person? What made you not like that person? What did you think was brave? Do you feel like the narrator is honest or dishonest? Can you believe the narrator? All of those conversations. And then there's more. That was just the one that was easiest to remember. She also talks a lot about reading, which of course anybody who says reading is Good. It's a dopamine hit, right? Because I'm like, I told you, I knew it was good, so yay, you're agreeing with me. It was good to read that, but she does what I've done, which is my kids are allowed to stay up as late as they want if they're reading, and that's how my parents were. They always allowed me to stay up as late as I wanted if I was reading. And there was many times where I fell asleep reading a book, and then I'd wake up in the middle of the night, turn my light off, and go to sleep. And she does that as well, and her parents did that with her, and that made me feel a camaraderie because that was like a very special part of my childhood. I remember I did not have a bedtime. It was whenever you were tired enough that you couldn't keep your eyes open anymore. And I think that was just it really helped me to develop this love of reading, love of books, and also I got to read a ton, which was good for me. So yeah, raising critical thinkers, just like how to read a book. In fact, more so. If I was going to create a curriculum for homeschool parents, the pre-homeschool years curriculum, this would be on it 100%. But I'm going to put some of the activities so that when we read a book, like The Shadow Throne, for example, at the end of that book, I want to talk to my boys. And she also gives early readers, and then it's 10 to 13, and then it's the high school. And so you've got these 3 categories of how to teach critical thinking at the different ages. And I was like, yes, because the questions I ask a 5-year-old are very different than the questions you ask a 15-year-old. And so she talks about that too with each activity. And so you're like, thank you for making that easier for me. Anytime something is made easier for me, the homeschool mom, I'm just like so grateful. Highly recommend Raising Critical Thinkers by Julie Bogart. I am very excited to read the other book by her, The Brave Learner. And hopefully, maybe, that'll be the May pick or something. We'll see. Yeah, that'd be great. That is my wrap up for the books I read in February and March. If you haven't already seen it, I'm doing a whole series on working and homeschooling. So I work full-time and I homeschool full-time. And I have a whole series about that. And then obviously we'll keep going with our Clear the Cart because it's been amazing. I'm reading so many books that have just sat in my shelf for years. And yeah. So if you're interested in either of those things, don't forget to subscribe. Come along for the journey. Excited to have you here, and I'll see you guys again really soon.